psychedelics can unlock one's ultimate spiritual potential, and then how to maintain that, or how to continue cultivating it with meditation afterward. And I really want to stress that this book is not about getting people to use psychedelics on a regular basis or to use them excessively. It's not. It's just one experience can be enough. And what I want people to do is to empower themselves to have the experience in a safe way, intelligently. And psychedelics are not for everybody. So there are contraindications in the book. Who should not do this? Because there are many cases of people that pushed them over the edge psychologically. They were fragile. There were contraindications that they ignored. But some of these contraindications also apply to people regarding meditation. Not everybody should meditate, or meditate in a very strong way.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I'm your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing, and it's welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Any reference to, welcome back, Carter. If you're a 70s guy, you'll know what I'm talking about. But a dear friend of mine, Sean McNamara, who is an incredible spiritual teacher and explorer of all things consciousness, and has just released this new contribution to all conscious explorers, The Path of the Golden Teacher. What an incredible exploration and a step-by-step guide into finding yourself. And potentially you could classify yourself as a psychonaut. I don't know, but welcome back to the podcast, my dear friend.
Thanks, Son. It's great to be back.
This is really, really amazing work that you put together in this book. Why don't you share a little bit? Let's start there. I know that we may have new audience members. If you want to do a quick refresh of your journey to this present moment, and we'll go right into the book, because I really want people to get a grasp for this.
Sure. Well, yeah, maybe an in-between intro would be a couple of years. So I've been exploring consciousness for several years, basically because I got unhappy with the potential I had in religious communities and experiencing abuse by teachers and issues of power and control. And so I left and started studying psychic abilities and turned that into my own path, because then there weren't any issues of control or manipulation or all the problems that happen in a lot of different religions and social groups. So over the years, developing psychic abilities and training other people in those abilities, and I eventually decided to put on a study, because in Colorado, in Denver, psilocybin had been decriminalized at that point. Now it's legalized, but then it was decriminalized. And I thought, what if I did a study to see if psychedelics could improve someone's psychic ability? And some of that was stimulated from an old video that I found. It was from the 1960s or 1959, from an old show called One Step Beyond. And in this episode, it was sort of a documentary in black and white of a scientist named Puharich, who went down to Mexico to learn about the psilocybin mushroom. And Dr. Puharich was also a consciousness researcher of his own and trained people and experimented with psychic abilities. And he met some shamans in this Mexican village who exhibited psychic potential, and they were frequent users of the mushroom. The mushroom was integral to their practices. So I saw this video on YouTube and I thought, yeah, I think I could do a similar study now in the modern age, many years later. What if I get some friends together and have them microdose the mushroom for 6 months, and every week they'll take 3 or 4 different ESP tests. And these were testing clairvoyance, various types of clairvoyance, and also telepathy. And I had about 7 friends agree to do this. I believe 3 of them were microdosing, and they microdosed psilocybin, but also Amanita muscaria. That's the red mushroom with the white dots on it. And I was one of the microdosers too. Mm-hmm.
Do they refer to that as Santa Claus or something like that?
Well, a lot of people associate it with Santa Claus. There's a story that that's where the Santa Claus myth came from. I've heard both sides that that's actually not true. That's not where the Santa Claus myth comes from. That actually the Coca-Cola company is the one are the ones who designed his new costume of the red and the white. But some people associate him with shamanism in Northern Europe because there the story with the reindeer herders up north that the reindeer actually like consuming the mushroom, and the shamans would collect a reindeer urine because it would have the refined muscimol, one of the components, and they would drink it. But also there's stories that the shamans there would eat the mushroom and that they would urinate and then drink their own urine, but then the people they were serving would also drink their urine because of the refined muscimol, because the liver processes it and the kidneys and everything. So there's a lot of true and untrue stories about how how Amanita muscaria has been used throughout history, but it's a rich history there. So I thought let's work with these two types of mushrooms, and for 6 months, my friends and the control group, who are also my friends, they did tests every week, and we compared their scores because I found a way to score their psychic ability with these tests, and also scoring myself. And after the 6 months were over, I had all these mushrooms left over. And by the way, I had to learn how to grow the mushrooms because I couldn't just buy them. That's still illegal. So I taught myself how to grow them. And I had all these leftovers. And I thought, if I don't do something more than microdosing, I'm really going to regret it.
You there?
Yep.
Yeah. It's funny. Just on the day, right, I was looking up. I'm going to Starlink, and then this happens again. They're like, "Oh, we're going to teach you. You will not go to Starlink." Oh, yes, I will.
Yeah, so we might have some glitches once in a while. That's okay. Yeah. So I thought, could I do larger doses and take the test? And the thing is, I'd only done large doses of mushrooms in college, so many years ago now. And both times were bad trips. I was unprepared, and the dose was probably too large because someone had just given me a bag of mushrooms, which I slapped into a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and ate it. I knew nothing about dosing. I knew nothing about preparation. I knew nothing about how to use the mushroom. And both times were terrible.
When you assimilate like something like that, when you get a massive dose like that, what is it, just offline? Is it kind of similar to someone drinking excessive amounts of like alcohol, or where you kind of just black out?
No, it's not. I was conscious until I fell asleep, and I was having hallucinations, and I was laying in bed. And the problem was, after I consumed them, I went. One of these times there was a fair happening on the college campus, and there were roller coasters and different types of rides. And I got on one just as the mushroom started kicking in. And the one I got on was called the Gravitron. That's the one where you stand against the wall and it starts spinning and it presses you against the wall, and then the floor falls away. So I'm on that while the mushroom starts hitting me, and I didn't know what to expect. So I was really terrified. And, I tried to make the most of the evening, and then I go lie down in bed in my dorm room. And it's as if my brain is dissolving and disintegrating, and I'm just watching it happen. And then I fell asleep eventually. When I woke up, I went to take a shower, and it felt like I was standing underneath a waterfall. And I could tell that my mind was still altered. And really, I was terrified that I had lost my mind permanently. Because I'd heard some of those fears, from the 80s, the war on drugs and all that, all the fearful messaging about the risks of psychedelics. And I thought, oh my gosh, I did it. I lost my mind permanently. And I just had to wait a little longer, and it was fine. But that fear was the worst part of the trip. I didn't know what to expect. And then when it took longer to fade away than I thought it should, then I got even more fearful. And that was the worst part, was the fear, which went away naturally. But so I had the memory of the fear, and here I am over 30 years later considering doing it again. I thought, well, I've also been meditating most of my life, but by this point I thought, well, maybe I can do this. So I did. And this time I spent 6 months taking large doses of psilocybin, large dose of Amanita muscaria again, and LSD and LSA, which is like an organic cousin of LSD. And then the final test was with smoking DMT, which I learned how to extract myself. And for those of you who are interested in DMT and how to extract it, the instructions are in the book, because good instructions are hard to find, and DMT is not so easy. So I spent 6 months, and I would take a large dose. It would start coming on. My mind is altered, and I'm tripping out. And thank goodness for my meditation training, I was able to hold it together well enough to engage in these ESP tests. Because what I really want to do is just lie down in bed and go on the trip, go on the journey, let it take over me. But I had to hold back. I had to like keep myself together. So I'm trying to see psychic information while the hallucinations are occurring in the darkness of my visual screen in my mind.
Or are they? That's the question. Or are they? Or are you just opening a gateway to another developed sensory perception, right?
Right. Yeah. And that was part of what I was trying to investigate. What's really going on here? So, but during one of those journeys, and this was with the LSD journey, all the journeys were beautiful, actually. They all had some meaningful material having nothing to do with the ESP test. And then I took the LSD, and it was my first time taking LSD. And about 3 or 4 hours in, I thought it was starting to end. I didn't know that LSD can take up to 12 hours. And I'd done all my ESP tests, and I had some emotional stuff come up. And I thought it was finishing, and then it started really ramping up. And during that journey, different things happened. I had a spontaneous past life regression, and I'd never done this ever before. I've never gone to a hypnotist to have a past life regression, nothing like that. So this was unexpected. And what happened was I was suddenly present in another body a long time ago, maybe 100 or 200 years ago, sitting in a room, and there was a window in front of me. And I heard a gunshot or a rifle shot. And I knew that this bullet had just come through the window, and I felt the impact in my chest. And I experienced dying. And I realized, and there's no way to prove this, right? So all I can do is trust it. But I realized this was a past life regression. This was my last life I had lived, and I had experienced being assassinated and killed. After the journey was over, this certain type of anxiety that I lived with all my life was about 90% gone. And there's a kind of anxiety of always feeling like I'm going to get into trouble, like someone's coming for me, someone's going to get me. And I think the reason why that anxiety abated so much was because the anxiety was a holdover from my previous lifetime when somebody was pursuing me and actually killed me. So that was one significant thing that happened during that LSD trip. Another thing that happened was suddenly I was able to perceive two people close to me in my current life who have been for a long time engaged in a really deep interpersonal struggle with each other, a lot of conflict. And I was able to see through their bodies into their energy channels. And suddenly, and I don't know how this happened, but I just knew what to do. There was a spontaneous healing ceremony that I could do for them. And my wife was watching over me, and I just gave her I said, honey, there's a little bottle of alcohol in the back of the cabinet. This was from many years ago when we moved into our condo. The previous owner had left a small bottle of alcohol that I never ever thought about. But suddenly I knew exactly where it was. I said, go get that, bring me a bowl, and bring me my drum, because I have a frame drum. And I did a spontaneous ceremony of taking the alcohol in my mouth, spraying it toward them in my mind's eye, and the bowl was to catch the liquor. But it was this purification ceremony and drumming for them and seeing their channels purifying. I have no training in shamanism. I'm not a shaman, nothing like that. But this kind of makes me think this sounds like a shamanic ceremony of some type. How did I know how to do this? I don't know. I've never done anything like this. But it came to me during the LSD journey. And then the third and the most significant thing that happened was that I had an experience that exactly matches the depictions of what it is to be fully awake, especially in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. So, the books, the texts talk about what it is to see the absolute perfection of reality. And I experienced that. I don't like to say I was enlightened or anything. I don't like that word. I think that there are many problems with using that word, but I experienced something that is described as enlightenment. And of course, when the LSD trip finished, and especially the next day, I realized, well, I can't hang on to that. I can't say I'm enlightened or anything. It closed, right? I had this just several hours of having that experience in a felt sense, a real knowing, not just as an idea, not just ideas I've read in books, but this is what they mean. And the actuality is beyond description, is beyond words, just as they say. As much as teachers say, you can't really say it with words, but then they try and describe it, right? And they write books about it. It is true. It is beyond words, but it was enough that I was like, oh, this is what all those teachers for thousands of years have been talking about. And I finally experienced it. And I had to let it go. I had to let it go. My ego had to settle down and go, okay, I'm not going to walk around like, oh, I'm enlightened or anything like that, but I had a glimpse. And I realized the reason I had that glimpse was because of 20, 25 years of meditation. And I had left my training. I had left the Buddhist community that had been part of for a long time. I had left that tradition because I was unhappy. I saw the human side of it and I saw the limitations. So I left. But still, the force of all those years of meditation was still inside of me. It's as if it had built up my potential. And the psychedelic was what released the potential to finally unlock and open that last door so that I could have that experience that many spiritual seekers look for. Where, many spiritual traditions have that goal that if you do this practice, you'll have that experience if you do it well enough or, whatever. And I thought, wow, that's why I was able to have this experience. And I value meditation still. Even though I left that community, I still meditate, although I don't use the rituals that I associate with that community. And I realized this is something powerful. And I actually, soon after that, I found some YouTube videos of a Tibetan Lama. He's actually a Welshman named Lama Michael Crowley or Mike Crowley. And he talks about how in texts that he's translated, he's a translator, he's studied ancient languages, there are many references to psychedelics in Tibetan Buddhist rituals. They're hidden symbolically, but they're there. And after watching his videos, and I read one of his books, actually I read both of his books. One of them is Secret Drugs of Buddhism, so people might want to check that out. I read that, and I looked back at the liturgies that I used to use years ago, and I thought, yeah, there's something to this ritual where in modern days we use watered down liquor for blessing or consuming it. It's supposed to contain the guru's blessing, and it's supposed to help you wake up. It's called Amrita, a Sanskrit word for the deathless nectar or the nectar of immortality. And it's really referring to the pure, indestructible nature of awareness. That's really what it's referring to. But, I'd been trained to use this watered down liquor, and because it has the guru's blessing, it's supposed to help wake you up. It's sort of like in the Catholic Mass, you go during Mass and you consume the Eucharist, which is supposed to be the body of Christ. And in Catholicism, you're supposed to believe that is the actual body of Christ. Well, you think eating the body of someone like Jesus Christ, you'd have some profound experience. Well, no, it was just a dry cracker, and drinking the wine it's just wine. I hope I'm not insulting any hardcore Catholics out there, but I'm sure many of you will agree with me that when you consume it, nothing really happens. And I wonder in Christianity if there was some aspect of the tradition in the past where the consuming of that was actually maybe some sort of psychedelic or some other mind-altering substance replaced by simple bread. Anyway, I realized that Amrita historically must have been a psychedelic, some sort of combination of plants or fungi. And that is what leads to the ultimate experience. And Michael Crowley, in some of his YouTube videos, mentions that even today there are some lamas who do use psychedelics in their ceremony with their private students. So even today, it still happens, which gives evidence to it being more fundamental in hundreds of years ago or thousands of years ago. But at some point, psychedelics were a part of the tradition. So I realized, yes, that has been the missing piece for all these years. And I would like to offer this to the public in a non-religious context, in a non-Buddhist context, so that anyone, whether they have a religion or a spiritual tradition or not, they can use psychedelics for their own spiritual gain. And I created this online guided meditation program to go with it, and it's mentioned in the book, so that they could use meditation to prepare for the psychedelic journey, and then it can help them during the journey, and then they can integrate the experience afterward with meditation so that they don't become dependent on a psychedelic. So what a shame if someone says, the only way I can have this experience is by taking the substance, and then you have people tripping out every week or every day. That's not healthy. That is not good. But what if someone can remember the lessons that came to them during the journey and incorporate them into their ordinary consciousness during daily meditation practice? So that's the gist of it. So from psychic development, creating this study, something happened to me with the LSD that showed me how psychedelics can unlock one's ultimate spiritual potential, and then how to maintain that, or how to continue cultivating it with meditation afterward. And I really want to stress that this book is not about getting people to use psychedelics on a regular basis or to use them excessively. It's not. It's just one experience can be enough. And what I want people to do is to empower themselves to have the experience in a safe way, intelligently. And psychedelics are not for everybody. So there are contraindications in the book. Who should not do this? Because there are many cases of people, it pushed them over the edge psychologically. They were fragile. There were contraindications that they ignored. But some of these contraindications also apply to people regarding meditation. Not everybody should meditate, or meditate in a very strong way. I had a personal friend once, long time ago, who I taught how to meditate, and I didn't know that he was psychologically fragile. That he had already had some issues with migraines and then schizophrenia, and he had a psychotic break after I taught him how to meditate, because he was meditating very strongly, and he snapped, and he had a psychotic break and had to be hospitalized for a long time after that. So psychedelics and meditation have some similar risks and some similar benefits, interestingly. So I don't know if I should pause here. I feel like I'm going on and on.
No, not at all. I mean, this is really profound stuff, because I mean, this is sort of like the offering that Sean has is a step-by-step guide to really creating your own conscious connection using some of these herbal medicinal gateways to higher sense of knowing. And I would reference that, you, like you said, is that this is your potential moment of creating a clear path of your own through the step-by-step within Sean's book, and then understanding what these are, what's the nature of this plant, this energy that people have used for thousands of years to awaken a different state of knowing. And so just through your own admission and understanding the ancient traditions that, I've come across many gurus, and one of them specifically comes to my mind, and he's in the deep, jungles in Indonesia. And this particular guy was, at the time, and this was over 20 years ago, at least 90 plus, almost probably 100. You could bounce a dime off his stomach, and he was smoking over, I don't know I don't even know how to measure it, but it looked like this massive it's a bag of weed. And he'd be just like chuffing away like it was nobody's business, literally hanging out of his mouth. But he could also levitate and do a lot of things that would be considered supernatural. And he was, in a great state of knowing.
Mm-hmm.
You see, I feel like what's really important that we should probably discuss is, as you mentioned, those contraindicated sort of like moments. What does that mean for the individual on their own journey? I always like to tell people that people end up on my doorstep having an OBE, NDE. I heard my grandma, had a vision, lucid dream, apparition came to me. I'm hearing voices. There's all these variables that make you realize that you've been misaligned, and you become realigned, and you access this sense of awareness. Now, most people get what I call a bite of the old spiritual dragon, and they chase it. They chase that dragon for their whole life. They're looking for it. I've had students that have like literally sat in like Buddhist temples in Japan for like 10 or 15 years, getting nothing more than a backache. They turn up on my doorstep, and I'm giving them like spiritual awakenings like they've never seen before. And they thought, this is the stuff I was looking for. I activated it through, just the transmission. And then you get on the journey of cultivating. That's why I always, yes, I'm a fanboy. Yes, Taoist alchemy is my main focus of teaching, but it's also you access things and you have this pliable, repeatable, tangible reference for your own journey in this electromagnetic spectrum. So when you're able to really move and separate electric from magnetic and do all these crazy alchemical things, you start to validate yourself. You become self-knowing, self-realized, actualized. That happens from that very moment. It's not a figment of your imagination. You have these moments. You dive into ESP, telekinesis, all the things that Sean trains people in, has extensive experience for many, many years training in these methods. And he teaches people all over the world how to do this stuff through his teaching, through his stuff online, through in person. I'm not sure whether you still do in-person stuff.
Not right now, but once in a while I do. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And this exploration is the very stuff that people we're all looking for. And when you're able to give someone a repeatable experience, you go from a psychosis to a knowing.
Mm-hmm.
Where you've stuck it. I like to tell people that psychology is an interesting instrument, but it was designed for one reason only, in my opinion, is to trap the individual in this idea of mind, in this idea that they're separate. And so I think psychology turned up around the 1700s. I can't remember the exact time frame, but it's very coincidental that it has this very limited method of giving you an understanding of who you are. And in some cases that's valuable. In a lot of cases it actually becomes a hindrance for people to really explore themselves. And it's all varied on your own journey and understanding how to communicate with you as an individual, how to communicate with that knowing, because this is the big, the big issue. Actually, what time is it? Where's that? I apologize. So when you get into understanding the methods, it's crazy stuff. I mean, personally, I've only ever had 3 people that I know that I've come across that can levitate. 2 of them were gurus, and one was one of my students. But people are like, well, if you teach someone how to levitate, why aren't you doing it, big guy? Because I don't care for it. It doesn't excite me. It's not, you have to find things that create desire, that is this driving force that gives you that oscillating effect, that charge. The stuff that Sean and I are experiencing right now is evidence of what that means. And so that symbiotic oscillation is a communion, a creation, a co-creation of the energetic potential. And that to me is most important, is that you have this. He's very, I mean, I want the audience to know Sean is always very humble, and I really appreciate it. That's who he is. But he's handing out gems like you wouldn't believe. And if you're looking for seeking to find the true nature of who you are, the stuff that Sean has compiled through his exploration is really powerful stuff to help you find your way. And the modest expression of that by saying he has a meditation program is a nice soft way to enter into some serious awakening, because these are the types of tools that you use. And I like that charge we're getting right now. It's like, this is that charge, that knowing. And so we go back to the experiencer. Experiential moment is the now, right? This is the stuff that when we move the energy like this and we get a charge up our spine and we're oscillating, and people are like, how do you know this? Well, I can see it and then I experience it if I want to. This is another sensory perception. Now, some people might call it clairvoyance or whatever, aura reading. I mean, we go down the facet. I mean, I go through all that stuff, and that's what I've been teaching people for decades, because this is what we call PK touch. Technically not possible, right, Sean? This is hang on a second. That, it's like, hang on. We're right now, we are what we call within Taoism, we are now the present moment. We are the primordial mother. We are the Wu Ji. We're experiencing that. So that energetic potential is what we as a collective, you and I, are experiencing that. So when I move my hands and you can feel it through your physical body, that is evidence of what I'm talking about. And that's the stuff that most illusionists, mentalists, other things, they go, oh, it's a trick. No. I mean, Sean's been studying this stuff and training in it for years. You want to elaborate on that? I think I went off on a tangent.
Oh, that's okay. No, what I really love about what you've been saying is the importance of the experiential aspect. And that is, and also what you said about, like, when you said you're not interested in levitation because you're not interested in it. So you have to be able to pursue what interests you.
Yeah.
And those two things, the value of real experience and the freedom to pursue what you're interested in, those two qualities are so empowering to the individual. And if anyone is listening right now who's a spiritual seeker, you might be caught in a tradition or a system where you're sitting there and nothing is happening for years, but your teacher is making promises. Keep bowing to me, keep giving me money, keep coming to my retreats. One day it'll happen. I believe these days that's highly questionable. What you want, and especially if the teachers.
Yeah, Sean and I are laughing, right? And then we're laughing together. But I mean, this is the for a Buddhist path is the rainbow body, right? It's like everyone. It's like, hey, I promise you the rainbow body. I'm going to give it to you. We'll level up, ascend together. And if I had a penny for how many people I've come across as students that have been disgruntled from gurus that have promised them their abilities to be supernatural, I'd be a billionaire at this point.
Yeah. So to study with someone like you, son, who you can give someone an experience, you can train them to develop their own experience, and you encourage them to focus on what actually interests them. There's some freedom there that you grant them in their progress to pursue what they think they need or what they want, and you give them a repeatable experience. That's so empowering. And I think it's quite rare in modern spiritual teaching, where people are just saying, follow me, just keep trying. Don't listen to that person. Don't try this. Don't do that. Just do that one thing I'm telling you to do for as long as I'm telling you to do it. And trust me, that's so disempowering. So what you do, Zan, is the exact opposite. And I really appreciate that, because that's really the most, if someone wants to have the profound spiritual experience in their lifetime, It doesn't need to take 20 years of following someone blindly and giving them full obedience. No, don't disempower yourself. Find a guide who wants to be your partner and who really wants the best for you, and who's also going to give you freedom instead of locking you down, right? So, and from the very little I know from Taoism, is it's got a beautiful menu of practices, and it's experiential directly, right? And very quickly.
Very quickly. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's very parallel to a Gnostic path with a sprinkle of someone's curiosity within Rosicrucian, and then Taoist alchemy is all that on steroids.
Mhm.
And then let's get a real supernatural experience and throw in some Harry Potter. You're going to have the experience. It's like, that's the point. The point being is I'm a Pepsi guy. I'm a Pepsi challenge guy from the 80s. I'll take the Pepsi challenge with anyone. If you're being able to just instantly obtain a frequency that you can share collectively in a group or just an intimate setting like this, you should be able to show people the simplicity of the energetic potential at will, because it's happening all the time. It's like you would be dead if there was no electromagnetic field running through your body and out of your body and from your body. This is the truth and the true nature of this material that some physicists might call a third dimension. This is what we're speaking of, and more collectively from a physicist's perspective, that energetic potential that we speak of, that we can tap into instantaneously. Because I always love people that go, I've never felt energy before. Oh, we're gonna have some fun today, because it happens instantly. We're not, people. I want people to be able to measure their results on a experience by experience basis. And so whenever I teach someone something, you should have to measure the result you got from investing. In some cases, when it comes to training, it's like about 27 minutes of experience. You should be able to measure the result you got from it instantly after you got out of that. And people are like, excuse me? Yeah, you're not hearing the, look, follow me in the cult of Kool-Aid personality. We'll end up in an island somewhere and we'll all be singing Kumbaya, and that'll be the last thing you hear from. No, the self-realized, self-evident experiences now, and you have to develop. The thing that I always say is the Taoist alchemy is second to none, because you develop an actual repeatable method that it's like anything, only the difference is within the material, you measure that by physicality wise, and you're going to be limited, right? So if you go and do something like exercise, your result will be evident by the amount of minutes and time that you spend on developing your VO2 max, your muscle to fat ratio, strength. All these things can be measured, but once you take your hand off the steering wheel, it dissipates and it's transitory. It's not a permanent development. It has to be maintained. Whereas what we're speaking of, Sean and I, once you put your finger in the pie, you will develop a skill that you can come back to and leave it for a week and do nothing and come back to it. And the skill will never leave you. You're creating new synapses, new information energy highways from a neuroplasticity perspective in your brain. Let's just start there with something real simple that someone can understand. And you're creating this sort of like homeostasis between the conscious and unconscious. And once you start to do things like, activate and elevate your brain waves to something that sort of sits in a gamma frequency, which is a 40 hertz and above, and you stay there, you have full access to your consciousness from a neuroplasticity perspective. Technically, you can access anything at will from an autonomous perspective, meaning that something that would be autonomous, that would be unobtainable consciously for you, you can obtain that access, meaning you can stop your heart, you can regulate your breath, your internal at a cellular level, from an epigenetic level. You can start switching on and off genes and doing things that would not be on a theoretical level from neurology even possible. but now you're harnessing this power that I call the maestro. You access the maestro, which is basically you're having access to the 50 trillion cells that are part of your physical flesh that looks back from you in the mirror, and you're being able to access the energetic potential, right? That's the power of it. That's the excitement. I mean, that excitement you and I get right now. I mean, I was so looking forward to our conversation today because both of us get so excited about all the things that we're exploring, and we're excited. And the thing is, and that's that charge that you got right now, we got right now. This is the thing, right? You and I both know I don't care what Sean talks about. I know it's true because I experienced it. I feel it. It ain't full of shit. And that's the difference, because I always tell people, if you're thinking, you're not knowing. If you're knowing, you're feeling. And that feeling, as you attune yourself, and that's why I always tell people, get to the energetic potential so that you can maestro and regulate the dantians from a Taoist perspective. Once you regulate those dantians, when you lead with your head, you're 100%. Lead with your heart, you're 100%. Lead with your gut, you're 100%, because the transmission is repeatable and you validate it. It's like, oh, I had this vision. I had an ESP moment where I saw this color that was coming up, and then it came up instantaneously. Or I had a vision of someone calling me, and they called me 3 seconds later. These are all repeatable, basic sort of like ground level experiments that you can do for yourself to go, hey, I'm tapped into something like this, what we call the primordial mother, the cloth of perfection. So this reality has been distorted, as my dear friend, the Buddhist monk would say, Martin, the dukkha is your attention intention is altering light to wave to matter to particle, realized as your reality. What you're experiencing is being crafted and created from a second by second basis, which creates a different energetic potential. So that energy has a vibration. That vibration has a frequency. That frequency, if met with the resonance and holding that line, ability to cultivate and hold it, is when you transmute things that are really tangible, that can come in the form of telekinesis, all the things that Sean teaches people. I call it manifestation, magic, healing. All that stuff is generated and is repeatable. But you gotta really start tinkering with what you have inside you that you don't even realize, and you turn it on, and people go, "Holy moly!" All these different things are going on. And this is where I go right into channeling, because channeling's my bag. As Austin Powers would say, it's my bag, baby. That's my thing. And so I've been doing that for 30 years, but really that's kind of like the ascension of, from a Taoist path, the highest level of knowing is channeling direct source. And from that, you have all the offsprings of umbrellaed versions, sensory perception, all the development skills. They come from that. And some people call it Akashic records, halls of Amente, the source, the universe, God, Buddha. But you have to be able to validate it, or you just become one of those nut jobs that call themselves a psychic on Yelp, and then you get a bunch of bad reviews because your information is not very accurate.
Yeah, and in that way, the experience people have, like with the techniques you teach, it's evidential. Experience is evidence. It's not, what you're talking about is not a faith-based spirituality. It's an experience-based. It's evidence-based, which is very different. Yeah.
And that's what, Sean and I are both big believers of. I don't want someone to do the faith, blind faith. Yes, just follow me. And I mean, I think that's one thing that you really bring a very good point, especially in this book, is don't be misguided by, someone else's distorted version of what that is. And you fall into it when you go and you jump on a guru. If a guru gives you, I always tell people, if anyone gives you an absolute truth, about face and run in the other direction. Mm-hmm. Because the absolute truth is only yours. Mm-hmm. And that can only be obtained through your own experience and the evidence. All the things that you and I are so connected with in in the creation of this stuff, because it can't come any other way.
Hmm.
And I mean, the extensive sort of like insight into your being able to cultivate all these different like substances so people can use them for their own development, and then the guided path. I want everyone to understand that it's not called the path of the golden teacher for no reason.
Yeah, I mean, I initially titled it that because golden teacher is a strain of the psilocybin mushroom. But as I told you earlier, recently I helped someone have their own journey, and when they finished their journey with the mushroom, they said, "I realize I'm the golden teacher. It's in me." And that's much more beautiful interpretation of the title, Path of the Golden Teacher. So this is all a path of meeting yourself, your true self, and finding the clarity and wisdom and compassion within, and that we all already possess it. It's part of us inherently. It's just covered over by some temporary obscurations, but they can be cleared away, and we can see deeper to what's inside. And what I love about this, our paths that we're talking about, is we can do this till that we die. Is we'll be old men, your audience, old people. Age is no problem, because what we're tapping into is timeless. Which at the same time, I'd be curious about your opinion on this. I worry once in a while, because we live in this modern age and everyone's so visually stimulated with social media and stuff. And what we're tapping into has zero value on social media. And it's not about appearances. It's not about looking a certain way. The inner experience is quite invisible from that perspective. And I worry that these kinds of things that we offer, the experiences that are possible, the spiritual growth, that I don't know if it's being left behind, or people are forgetting it, or their attention is being swayed towards what you can see, what looks pretty on a laptop or on someone's mobile phone. That's what they want. And what we're teaching, it's so subtle, and it doesn't have an ego reward, right? It doesn't look any certain way. It's almost invisible in a way. So I worry about that. What about the future? What's going to happen to these traditions and these practices and people's access to these experiences? I'm sure it'll continue in some way, but it's just something I worry about lately.
No, I think you're making a valid point. I had this conversation with a dear friend of mine, James Tunney, and he's a scholar and a spiritual conscious creator, a devout Catholic, but not in the sense of I'm brainwashed. He goes right back to the ancient roots of this stuff, and he's very, very in tune with most spiritual paths. He can really parallel and cross section everything. It's kind of like mind blowing how he does that. But the truth is, we had this conversation. It's like that's why my Nigong book is specifically called Return, the Ritual. And that is really important to go deep into understanding your relationship with yourself and how deep that goes. And the more you go, first you must remember, and this comes from the method. And that starts to really evoke all this stuff. It will just come up. And there, when you mentioned your experience where you're having a past life experience, that's the stuff that I share with people. Like, I'll do past life readings, but you tap into their essence, and they'll experience the reading generally in their third eye, and depends on their clairvoyant development. It'll normally be in their third eye, and they'll feel this visceral, kinesthetic, somatic response, and they will see it like they're watching a movie in their mind. And so when you speak on that stuff, that's very tangible, very real, and very accessible. You just have to train in the method. You had already acquired a remembrance of your own abilities. You have it all, just like Sean mentioned. We all have it all. It's just how can we access that path to return to that and make it an experience that is repeatable, that you can have a very palpable, tangible knowing. And that is where alchemy comes into it. You know, the alchemy is critical. Like I said, I can teach people how to levitate, and the right person with the right alchemical processes will just jump right into that, depending upon where they're at in their own awareness of past lives leading up to it. And generally, when I do 9 lives leading up to this, it gives them a very clear path on how quickly they can put all the extra pieces together, because it's like information instantly given to them. And so it's like it's consciously shifting them at a whole nother level. You know, you'll take like 2 or 3 days to assimilate to what you've just experienced, because it's all integrating within you just from past lives. But that skill set is absolutely, as Sean said, 100% available to anybody. You just need to find someone that can actually teach it, because that's the biggest thing I've had an issue with. I have a problem with the way that people have bastardized a lot of the Taoist practices, and they're just false nonsense. This is my personality. Hey, he's a priest. He said nonsense. Is he taking judgment at someone else? I'm just going to be honest. I mean, the truth is there's a lot of hacks, as Sean said, and they sell a bunch of nonsense, and they go, just keep following me, just 6 more months. You'll get there. The rainbow body's coming up. No, another 6 months. Oh, the rainbow body will be there. No, you need to access it and have evidence of it on an experience by experience basis. And if you don't, keep searching and seeking until you find a method that will give you that, because it's available to you. And so when you see some of the stuff that's come out of Taoism, and because Mao basically slaughtered 60 million of his citizens, and most of them were Taoists, and made sure that there were no evidence, because Chinese culture and Chinese medicine are all founded within Taoist alchemy fundamentals. Mm-hmm. So everything that you have within the Chinese culture dates back to the origins of one of my teachers, the Yellow Emperor, who downloaded all the information from the universe, the whispers of the universe, as he was magnetized to the earth for 18 days and nights, downloading the Chinese culture as we know it, and all Taoist alchemy and Taoist, as some people would call philosophy. But quite frankly, as a Taoist priest, I'll let people know it is a religion, and a religion in yourself. And people are like, what? What are you talking about? Taoist alchemy, Taoist religion is about believing in yourself. It's like Gnosticism. And so when you have relationships with, I have over 171 teachers that I channel information from, that's my dialogue with the monologue, which is the Tao. And so I'm getting information from these relationships, and it's refining and validating who I am, the now. And that's it. It's not about, we're here to go and worship an unobtainable entity or a vision of something else. It gives you evidence of returning to yourself. And then that experience needs to be validated, or you do. You will go down that path of potential psychotic break if you're not given evidence and you're not strengthening that line. Because most people that I've observed over 30 years that are experiencing potential psychotic episodes have not been given the strength within them or the methods so that they can hook up and stay there, because they get into a state of information and they can't turn it off. They don't have the ability to turn it off, which puts them into, all different types of diagnosis from a psychologist's perspective, which is just someone not having the ability to harness and be able to experience the information, the entity, the spirit, whatever, and then still be present. And that's the offline part where you get the breaks and things of that nature. And everyone can cultivate and return back to it. It's just not having someone keep investing in, well, you have a mental illness, you need help. And if you don't believe it, understand this and know this to be true. Your truth is the only truth you need to be concerned with. So how you get there is so important about your network, your community, the communion and the congregation that comes around your belief system. And then that belief system has to be validated through your own experience to turn it into a knowing, or you get stuck in between two worlds where it can be problematic for anybody. As you know, you have this moment and then that moment and this moment, and then there's so many highs and lows, and they normally transmute into the most common validation of this currency, which is the mental emotional state of the human experience. That's what they call the human condition.
Mm-hmm.
So it transmutes that way, and this can be problematic for people if they're not guided in a way that they can find their own anchor in truth. And that's kind of like where within Taoism we talk about that. The internal flame that burns inside you is the anchor to your truth and everything. All is one, one is all. And so that, we both had a somatic experience where you're like, hang on a second, I can feel whatever those words were, they were resonating within me.
Mm.
I can't explain it, but they were just there. And this is now more self-evidence. And you just want to refine that so the tuning fork is an optimal tuning fork, not a distorted one, where, some people, they channel the Palladians. They wake up one day and channel the Palladians, start a YouTube channel and get 100,000 followers. And this can be problematic if they're not regulating their energetic potential. And it doesn't take much. Once you switch it on, you just have to realize that if you're playing in this two-world thing and you're dualistic and you haven't entered the non-dualism, then you will be subject to that. You can turn on your energetic potential, but then you can be subject to the mental, emotional stuff very easily. So a lot of people I find come to me with that. They're like, oh my goodness, I had a Kundalini experience. I feel energy. It's all around me. Oh my goodness. But then their belief system is still steeped in right or wrong, up or down, in or out. And with that can be problematic because until you pierce that veil of fear, the emotional content, you're going to keep oscillating between that stuff. And you're going to keep telling yourself, well, this is my reality. This is the truth. I get anxiety. I get fear. I get depressed. And this is the truth. I experience it. How do I know it? I keep validating it. Every day I have another moment that presents itself and transmutes into that state. So how could this not be true? Someone can't tell me it's not true. Mm-hmm. And that's that part where you need to find yourself the right community that can help nurture you through what would be perceived as being that, but there's actually something greater that once you pass through that, oh my goodness, all bets are off. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think secondary to technique is what you just said, community. Community is so important. And that includes a teacher or a guide, and then fellow practitioners and friends and family. Like who someone surrounds themselves with has the most impact on their spiritual development after practicing a technique, right? And I think in the modern day, it's so easy to become isolated, especially since COVID. We all got isolated then, and to try and go on these journeys by ourselves. And it can be done, but it's so helpful and nurturing and healthy, psychologically healthy, especially, to feel the support and encouragement and acceptance, especially accepting reports of experiences, acceptance instead of rejection. Unconditional positive regard, that's a therapy term, but seeing the goodness in someone instead of finding the pathology, because that's what a lot of psychology is. It's pathologizing anything that's not normal. So if you don't fit in this box, anything outside of it is an illness. Well, in spiritual development, there's this box, and a lot happens out here, but it doesn't mean that it's pathological. It's just doesn't fit in this dualistic box. So that's where the more expansive viewpoint is necessary, and to surround oneself with people who have that expansive viewpoint is healing and supportive, and it's crucial for a good path, I think. So
yeah,
that's what I got out of what you were saying.
Yeah, no, it's really, really important because it only takes. I always tell people when you're emotional, you're suggestible. It's that simple. I always teaching, even all my kids. I have 6 kids, and 5 of them are in tune to many things, from remote viewing, healing. I started them with the basic technique of understanding how easy you can slip between conscious and unconscious process. So hypnosis is a very basic entry level of realizing there's several states that you can acquire instantaneously. And there's nothing more powerful when you do something as simple as acquire someone. It's really your attention. Where is it, and how to access what takes place once your attention is acquired? What does that even mean? It comes down to your ability to change the state that you're in instantaneously. And I don't know how deep you've explored hypnosis, but it's always a good level to start with, and it's always an entry level. Now, when I like channel Latsu, that's on a whole nother ball game. That's a different. We're talking tomatoes to tomatoes. It's on a different level of frequency.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still important to understand that you can instantly be hijacked, and this would come more back to what Sean said about getting a guru that sort of promises you many things, and there are little to no return on that. These types of fundamentals are understanding that you can drop into these states very quickly. I could literally just transmit a frequency and walk up to someone and drop them into a trance inside of the same second that I say hello. And people freak out. They go, well, how is that possible? Well, it's all transmission. It's all energetics. The more you cultivate this stuff, the more obtainable it is. It's just like we were talking about, the physical return being very diminished and limited when you invest in the physicality, as opposed to the conscious state, where what we call the plasma, the substance, and it's very tangible when you're doing simple things like just training in astral projection. You will find this substance very evident when you start leaving your physical body consciously. And so that's that stuff that you want to get your hands on. But understanding that someone can literally, it's not like Mesmer back in the 1890s where look into my eyes and watch the pendulum. It's just not. When you have people that are a little bit more distorted, like the godfather of NLP, like Tony Robbins, you get people that are using linguistics, which would be a reflection of you at a subatomic level, right? So what's evident within your DNA is the symbols, the numbers, the letters, the words. They're all integrated in there. That was actually validated scientifically, I think back in the 90s or 2000s. There is absolute evidence of this. And then you start using gateways like the principles behind, epigenetics and accessing the self-receptors of the dermal layer. And now you're starting to orchestrate the pineal, pituitary, and thalamus, and you're creating an alchemical fun factory using the culture medium, the blood, as the shuttle, the vehicle to orchestrate whatever it is that you want inside your physical body, and then being able to validate it and transmute it into the rest of what is this reality. And, so all this stuff is completely tangible and real, but hypnosis is a good entry level to realize that, holy moly, in the same second, if I can erase your name and put you to sleep in the same breath and not even talk to you, that should be a knowing of how quickly you can obtain that state. And that just validates the person's ability of their own mastery. All that is that. And people freak out. And it always starts off with that, because we do little street magic days with my kids where we'll go down to the Strip, because we're out here in Nevada, and we'll do street magic. And it's always a consent, how do I put it? It's done with an approval of both the experiencer and the teacher, which would probably be my 12-year-old, because he loves to do this stuff. And it's like you always ask them, hey, they're about partying on the strip, they're drinking whatever. Hey, would you like to experience bliss? And everyone's like, yeah, because everyone's seen David Blaine. It's like, oh, well, this is kind of weird. Well, what's going to happen? And
Hmm.
the friend gets out the camera and they stand by and they watch, and in the same second they say yes, it's like sleep, and their friend is passed out standing up, and their friend goes, oh, how did that happen? But this is excitement. I think I want people to be excited about the potential of what can happen. Like if that's possible, anything is possible
Hmm.
to access that state of awareness. And so when people have the experiences like, hey, I got my cell phone, Sean, oh, I lost my cell phone. Sean, do you know where it is? I have no idea where. Oh, I mean, in a psychological world of psyche, that would be a reverse hallucination. You do it to yourself. You have the ability to do this to yourself, to change this perception.
Hmm.
And how deep do you want to go with it? Can it just be something that's transitory for that moment as just I changed the state in my mind, or actually access this substance and shift what we perceive as material? Now that's what I call the mastery. That's what I love to do, is witnessing physical healings,
Hmm.
mental, emotional, spiritual. I mean, that's the stuff. That's the secret sauce. That's the excitement part. And so, did you explore it a lot yourself, or
Oh, I'm not sure which part you're asking about, but I mean,
just like something as simple as hypnosis? You
oh
probably
yeah, yeah. And in fact, I mean, I use it when I teach a lot. I don't call it hypnosis. I might just say an induction or a guided meditation, or
yeah.
because really it's just about using the tone of voice and language and a feeling
Hmm.
to help other people access a particular state within themselves.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite simple, but and it's lovely. It's an enjoyable state, and I can see a lot of potential for healing with it too. Because most of us modern people we have jobs and we have to deal with traffic and stress, and we're in the complete opposite state. We're neurotic and anxious and depressed and all this stuff. So to even just experience the hypnotic state a little bit can be so restful and healing, and so and it can be profound. It can be an access to much deeper things. But on a basic level, like if anyone out there is dealing with a lot of stress, you can learn hypnosis quite easily, just for the level of relaxation, going within, and starting to let go of some of that daily stress and anxiety too. So it's worthwhile on that level too. Yeah.
Yeah, the simplicity of it. I mean, when you access things like the state that Sean and I talk about when it comes to spoon bending is now going deeper into the substance. You're
Hmm.
being able to be the present moment, we call the Wu Ji within the Tao, which is the primordial mother. It's the cloth of perfection. You're now that present moment. That substance is it. So you're commandeering through your mind, and it's not separate. So if you say heal, heal, manifestation, manifestation, whatever it is will be now, because the substance is you.
Hmm.
It's not a place, person, or thing. And that's where people get into the I am, which I think is problematic. A lot of people, they love using the I am, and they're wondering why the secret doesn't work for them, because they're separating themselves. You
Right.
cannot identify. There is no identification. There is nothing. But you have to have this, not a breadcrumb, but a pathway that can keep validating that through the energy. I always talk back to the energy, and it's the exciting part. I mean, that I think that was just the allure for me, because I've always been obsessed with, you know, um, movies and supernatural and paranormal and all that kind of stuff. It became really evident that the portal to obtaining that is through your imagination, is that getting right in there. But you have to be able to go, okay, well, I experienced this, and I created this magic, which is really a deeply constructed manifestation that comes in different ways of layering energetic potential through that, and that is accessing that present moment and then showing the result. Like, I crafted this manifestation, I witnessed this physical healing, I witnessed this magic. But it has to be, not, fleeting psychotic moments, but real, not delusional stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to see it. And then now you're off to the races. I mean, what was it? Just the other day, my wife burnt her hand on some boiling water. And, one of my son, my 10-year-old, with his attention intention, you watch it. It's like, it's red hot. And, normally people just want to put cold water on it. It makes it worse. And then you got swollen, like a spot on your body for, days normally, and it will slowly heal. But you watch it and you watch the energy move out from that spot and it returns back to its original state in the same amount of time it takes him to think about it. And, that's just being taught that the now moment is it. I mean, childlike, as you talk about the gurus, be childlike in your nature. There's nothing more. I haven't hindered his ability to go, Johnny, that can't happen. It's all in your mind, Johnny. No, he just knows it can happen because dad teaches him this stuff. That's what dad does. So why can't I do it? And I think that's huge. It's like everything that Sean puts out is like been experience after experience through his own validation, and then put together this incredible smorgasbord of potential for individuals to create their own reality that is not founded in some sort of like anecdotal, I had this experience. This is a thing that drives me nuts right now. Maybe you can verify this. A lot of people get big on NDEs. It's huge. It's massive. And, you get enough, of the wacky tobacco and, you're going to have a story. But people love listening to these over and over and over again. I think it's exciting. But then, unfortunately, because of my own training, I can also tell when someone's full of the old proverbial shit. And, you get a lot of those where they're just, they never experienced it, but they've got potential. And I think that's a great starting point. But why don't you tell someone that didn't really happen to you, just making it up in your head as for now? Now, for you to really do it, why don't we train you in how to actually exit the physical body, and you can then create something that is not just what you consider imaginary, but real, because it's possible. This is not any delusional state. Astral projection is something that all these ancient indigenous practices have been surrounded by as part of a path of development, is being able to do that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, the out-of-body experience is a huge part of my own development. It was really crucial in giving me the confidence to leave the spiritual tradition that I'd been part of, the religion, because it was evidential, and it was something I could give myself, that I just had to learn a few techniques from books, essentially. I didn't need to get any guru's blessing or permission or anything, which is the case in some traditions. You need some sort of approval before you try something like that. But no, I just did it, and without a doubt, it was real. I mean, I've done multiple out-of-body experiences, and they're real, and I learn something every single time. And it's not instant. I have to practice the technique over and over again to generate and then the experience happens. So, but it's its own type of meditation in a way, to the visualization and all the other techniques related to it. But yeah, I think there is a risk with all of this that someone might be making some stuff up. It's a very exciting topic, and everybody's seeking something. They're looking for consolation. They're looking, maybe some people are grieving because of the death of a loved one. Everyone's looking for something, which is, I think, the real starting point. When someone is seeking understanding, or they're seeking a release from grief or something. And I think that's why the near-death experience is so popular, because so many people are grieving and so many people are fearful of death and the afterlife state. So it's a huge topic. But I think it's beautiful that we live in a society where people can explore it, can have conversations. There are conventions about it, conferences about it. The International Association for Near-Death Studies, that's what they specialize in. And I have a couple of friends who went to this year's conference, and they have a healer group, and healers show up and volunteer their time and services, and people experience real healing there. So there is that close tie-in between people who have experienced being on the other side, and then they attain some understanding that gives them the ability to heal, which is really interesting. So I think that gives some evidence to there's something happening for people when they have a real near-death experience. And of course, there are cases where people might be making something up because they really want to have the experience, or maybe they had some sort of visionary experience, but it wasn't quite that. And like you say, you can tell when you listen to someone if it's legit or not. Generally, I mean, I could be wrong, but I get a feeling from someone when I hear what they're saying. So, but yeah, the NDEs are profound. The out-of-body experience is great because it gives someone who hasn't had a near-death experience the alternative way to experience themselves beyond their physical body. So it's a beautiful skill to train in. And it's great because there's a mystery to it, and no two out-of-body experiences for me have ever been the same. When I leave my body, it's a different experience. And sometimes it's local, or I'm in my own living room and I'm looking back at my body laying on the couch, but something else happens, or I learn something, so it's a beautiful mode of discovery, because having an out-of-body experience opens something, and then what you learn, you almost can't predict what you'll learn in the next moment. But so you train in having the experience, and that's just the beginning. Then when you have the experience, something unique happens for one's personal growth. At least that's my experience. So.
And that Sean made such a great point there. I want people to understand that, because everyone has this Hollywood, this I would say, I'm seeing a lot more of it, where it's a Hollywood version where someone's commandeering what you want to perceive as your expectation. Well, there's a soul contract, and I get out of my body, and then I go through this, and this happens, and that. It's all about the soul. It's all about my exploration. It's all about me knowing myself, and I'm here as a point of consciousness, and that's the reason I'm here, and I'm here to learn and develop, and it becomes this sort of like Hollywood chopped up sort of echo chamber.
Mm-hmm.
People will ask me, well, Jeffrey, why are we here? And my answer is, why not?
Mm.
And people, because the very fundamentals of Taoism is the decipherer for your reality is the yin and yang symbol.
Mm.
That is your decipher. That is your template. You drop it down, and it happens to be represented in every aspect of every part of a dualistic experience. And that's the decide. That's the charge. Like that charge you and I got right now, that's it.
Mm.
And that's the knowing. And you get it. And it's like when that, from a Taoist perspective, from the void bursts the seed of the primordial mother, and from her womb is creation. And so that is just the simplicity of Taoism. But hang on a second, but that doesn't. What about me? What about me and my individual journey? And Lao Tzu was so funny. I think I told you the story last time, but his answer is this simple. It's like, imagine you're like a grain of sand, asking the beach, "What are we doing today?" Fall back into the beach and be realized. I'm just like,
Yeah.
you can't make it up. It's like the simplicity of that stuff is crazy.
And that's such an important point. I think about it, and I don't know if I've ever talked about it with anyone like you or anyone in an interview. That is the crucial point that gets ignored or forgotten. That we start off on our individual spiritual journey. We have something we want to accomplish. And I'll just speak for myself. When I had in my most profound, insightful moments, especially on that LSD trip, it's not about that at all. It's about just becoming the grain of sand and sinking back into the beach and letting go. Like everything's fine. Everything is fine. And it's not about me. It's not about my journey at all. I could just relax and let it go and just be a regular human being. But that's not a very popular viewpoint. That's not so exciting for the individual. And of course, that saying, it's the path that need not have been taken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we have to take the path in order to realize that, oh, crap, I didn't have to do any of this. I could have just realized that the universe is perfect just as it is.
And that's the exciting part about being the seeker, as a Taoist seeker. That's the exciting part. Elementary, my dear Watson, is the exciting crumbs that you come across, and then you realize once you obtain the next level up in Mario World, oh, okay, I achieved that. That's great. Moving right along. And very few people, unless they're obsessed and refuse to continue to expand, because within Taoism, we look at everything like the bellows. It's the bellows. Everything is contracting and expanding at the same time. You are all things and nothing at the same time. And people are like, oh, man, I think I need a hit right now. And I'm like, but that's that part where I always remind people, man is not like that. That means that if you identify with the physical flesh as part of your journey and you stay between the two worlds, you can instantly switch in between the two. I've got a personality. I like Netflix. I like chocolate bonbons, and I like driving my side-by-side in the desert 100 miles an hour. That has nothing to do with the present moment and my ability to access that for moments of consciousness. Now, if you go deeper on a Taoist path, there's a fundamental construct where the mother will show the Taoist that we're all ambassadors to planet Earth, as is every other facet of the diamond, we call perfection. Throughout the universe, there are ambassadors of each individual aspect, that grain of sand of that beach. And from that, as we continually develop our spiritual consciousness, we raise the frequency to help the human being return to empathy, to return to that knowing. And that is fundamentally, if someone goes deeper into Taoism, the mother would teach you this fundamental knowing. And of course, there's nothing more powerful than that, is raising that frequency. It's just like how powerful, when Sean was talking about his astral projection training, once you obtain that vibratory experience, everything is frequential, right? The frequency, and you feel you literally feel your spirit body raise up out of your physical body. There's nothing more tangible than that. You and I are experiencing it right now. We can feel it through our physical bodies, that a similar vibratory now moment that is referencing the astral. And that's what we can do. We can do that instantly. Once you obtain that frequency, it's yours forever. It never leaves you. And now it's about cultivating that method and making it repeatable so that you can maintain that resonance. And that's where that resonance comes in as an ambassador to planet Earth. You're bringing this resonance that is basically the mother, showing someone something beyond the dualistic reality of just the humanist. And from that, we call the Wu Ji, is where you access Wu Wei, which is effortless action, effortless effort. The flow, baby, as Bruce Lee would put it. That's the flow, right? It's like everything is synchronistic. Everything is completely serendipitous. All of a sudden, your life is just effortless because you continue, as Taoists would always look at it like this: when you're at your lowest, you're really at your highest. So it's like through the contracting, expanding that's happening forever, that will never stop, unlike the physical body, you can obtain that ability and realize that, is my glass half empty or full? It's full. It's always full. It's half full. I'm always going to see it half full. And from that, it's not sheltering yourself from, some people would call it the shadow work or the emotional state or whatever. You can experience it. If you want to experience it as a human being, go for it. Do it, man. Dive into it. I have some student, one of my dear friends is a Buddhist monk. He goes, I don't want any of that stuff. I hate the energetics, Sam. You get into all that alchemy stuff and the magic and stuff. I don't like it. I don't like it. I just like to sit here silently and observe the dukkha. I'm like, hey, brother, whatever you're into, man, you just want to just be. And that's the whole beauty of the experience, right? Is you can choose whatever it is that now moment, and it's for you to decide what that truth is, not for anyone else. And that's where a lot of this conjured up Hollywood versions of what OBEs are and what are NDEs become. You end up taking on what some people might consider the Wutiki, the jinn, the parasites, other reflections of things that are not as high frequency. And then all of a sudden you're in this dualistic version of, this isn't as great, or I'm creating something. And really, as Jane Emperor would always say, it's like when you accept you know nothing, you know everything.
And right. And these days there are too many experts out there who know everything, right?
I got it. It's like, this is the way. Right. It's like you listen to them and they're so committed to it. This is the only way. This is the way. And then you have a conversation with them and they're like, no, this is what happens. And then your spirits will talk to you. And this is the version of, how the soul is going to, be constructed and dictated by the oversoul. And, listen, that's your bag, baby. And it's for you, but it doesn't have to be for everybody.
Right.
And that's the part that I think you and I are stressing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so much better to know nothing. It's so much easier. I love being a student much more than I love being a teacher. It's more fun and mistakes are welcome. I don't have to, it's just, I much prefer knowing nothing. And then there's so much to discover and a lot more flexibility, a lot more fun too.
Well, I mean, that's the journey of the journey of a Taoist is, so you're aware.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, for about 10 seconds you froze.
I was like, you're too high frequency, Sean. This is a problem. Yeah. You're like you're busting out the Wi-Fi here. But yeah, as long as you follow the student is the teacher, the teacher is the student, is my opinion, from everything I've experienced in this lifetime, you'll continually expand.
Yeah, because the grain of sand, when it reabsorbs into the beach, that's a much more vast viewpoint than what the sand could accomplish, than the grain could accomplish by itself, right?
Right.
Just let go. Yeah.
So simplicity of that. It's like when he said that and it came out of my mouth, I was like, man, I sound like a genius. It's unbelievable. But that's the whole point of accessing information, is that it's never yours. You never have any. The whole point of it is, whenever you experience channeling directly, and we do it all the time, everyone does it. It's like you get a great idea, you're channeling information. You got a feeling, you're channeling information. You have any thoughts, you're channeling information. Now, some of that, to some people, that might frighten them a little bit. Well, what's going on? Well, as the Jade Emperor would also say, when you accept all thoughts of your mind are not yours, now we're going to get down with the get down and go, well, if they're not mine, whose are they, Jifu? Oh, we're just getting started.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, Well, this has been an incredible conversation today, my dear friend. And
Yeah, thanks so much. It's been fun. Yeah.
I'm really excited about getting your book out there for people. How long has it been published now?
Just a couple of months. Yeah.
We're going to get it out to the masses. I'm sure that's not a problem because you have a large community of people that really are grateful for all your contributions, because you've put in some incredible searching and seeking and discovering that is so valuable to the community. And I want to thank you for that, brother.
Well, thank you for doing what you do, and it's just nice to have a friend like you, and we can have these chats. And
Sorry about
just,
that.
That's okay, and just have conversations on the journey. You know, it can be lonely, so it's nice to have friends to do this with. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, that's it. What's that expression? Real, recognize real. Well, it's true. It's like, Sean and I can instantly have the bullshit detector. It's quite simple. In this space, it doesn't take very much to understand as an experiencer whether someone is full of the old proverbial or has actually experienced the things they speak of. It's a fundamental difference. And guess what? There's nothing wrong with I'm not a fan of it, but I'm not going to also say there's anything wrong with faking it before you make it, because so many people do that. You got to start somewhere. But if you stay there and that's your whole gig is just to pretend, I think that would be, disappointing as a seeker. You just stay there. You'd want to taste, right?
It's a missed opportunity.
Yeah. Whenever I come across it, I'm always like, okay, so now let's experience the real deal. They're like, holy shit, this is real. Yes. Guess what? You have the ability to access it. You have the ability to create it. No exception. There's no one. No one is an exception to the rule. I want people to understand when it comes down to, oh, well, maybe my gifts weren't this. No, you just need to decipher how it is that you return back to your knowing. And whatever method you use to return to knowing who you are, you will find it, and you'll be able to cultivate and develop it. And that comes from all the stuff that Sean teaches, and all different sensory perceptions. You've got a plethora of stuff that you teach people, and it's so powerful because this is validation for the individual. That's validation for the seeker when they develop one of these skills. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's really important for them. I mean, from time to time, someone will tell me that it was important for them to experience what they did because it validated other areas of their life. For example, energy healers might say, I'm not really sure, but then they experience something that's more easy to be verified. And then that gives them confirmation that their work is real and it's true, what they're doing. So that's really great. Yeah.
We'll have to get you down to the temple here at some point and make a pilgrimage.
Yeah.
And we'll have some fun.
Yeah, I want to meet your kids.
Yeah. It's funny you said ESP trainer. A dear friend of mine, his wife. You know Gail Thiessen, right?
Oh yeah. Gail Hyson. Yeah.
Hyson. Her husband developed the ESP trainer.
David, yeah.
They're
such a great couple.
I just did a podcast with David. We went off on tangent. We were there for 3.5 hours. It's so easy to do. It's I was just like, I love you, brother. Yeah, I love you, brother. It's get into it, and then you get him on politics, and then I might have to just take that part out of the video. But he's passionate. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, he created that thing, and it's a great tool. I think the best number I ever got on that thing was 21. And it's just a good all-round available something that you can pick up and start practicing. For all intensive purposes, something as simple as precognition, you're going to get a validation of that.
Yeah.
Have you used it before, or?
A long time ago, yeah. And I know there's at least 3 or 4 versions of it out there these days that other people have created.
Yeah.
So yeah, these tools are out there for people to play with and train themselves, and it's not difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you again, brother, for coming in and hanging out with me today, because this is the type of valuable information everyone should hear about, and especially your book for people exploring themselves and getting information from what or who I consider an expert.
You're frozen. I don't know if you can hear me.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back. Yep.
Yeah. So you having this incredible guide to that, it's like uh, what's that old one from the 80s? Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. You remember
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
This is like, I mean, you could really, the path of the golden teacher, the guide to the galaxy. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks again, brother. I really
You're
appreciate it.
welcome. Yeah.
And
Thank you.
I'm going to put all your social media under this podcast and where people can find this valuable canon, really, of information, and all your other books that give reference to all sensory perception training. So Sean's got some incredible assets and modules and training, because I think you have some other online courses.
Yeah, they're all on mindpossible.com.
Yeah. So everyone should go out and check that out. And any of the listeners, disciple students, 126ers, and good old fashioned subscribers. You're familiar. Did I tell you about the 126? Or you don't know?
No, I just know it's in your email address. The way
the 126, I developed this with Latsu, and basically it's a banger of an experience. You want to master your emotions and go on a magical mystery tour of self-development and realization. You use this app. So it's like, it starts with, hey, I'm the janitor from McDonald's, or I'm a judge, an attorney, I'm a cab driver, I'm a yogi, I'm a Pilates instructor, I'm a guide meditation instructor. You start this thing, you hit play, you experience what's equivalent to, most people call it 10 pina coladas, a full body massage, in 10 days in the Bahamas. And they go, what the how is this possible? And so initially it's a visual and audible experience that creates a kinesthetic, somatic, visceral experience, right? So with that, initially, because your energy is not regulated, you're going to pass out. Most people pass out. They're literally like, I can't, this is crazy, because it's imprinted with the frequency. I transmitted it from Latsu through myself into the actual digital offering. And so it regulates the energy centers from 0 or 1, what some people, as a Buddhist, would call a transpersonal point. A Taoist would call it energy center 1, the connection with the earth. And then you go up the 7 that you're familiar with, chakras, and then it's 8 and 9. The first 9, you develop those within the first 9 weeks of training, and that basically masters your emotions, meaning that you can move the emotional state like an icon on a computer screen within a few seconds. And, I get accountants that are like, holy crap, I literally feel high. I'm like, it's April 15th and I'm should be stressing out and wanting to kill myself. And I'm just so relaxed, man. I don't know. Nothing bothers me. And this is a mastery that you acquire. The thing is once you develop these skills, they don't leave you. You could literally do something like that. I mean, there's 2 years worth of training there, but you could do a 9-week training on this app and literally do what most people want, which is master their emotions. Okay, we're done. Okay, that's it. Now you've been mastered. That's all I want, is to not be controlled by my mental emotional state in this reality. And that's a great baseline. And then, of course, if you want to go on a deeper path of accessing more energy centers, because we go up to 108 within this application, which is almost 2 years worth of training. But you're like superhuman. I honestly consider people being superhuman by the 27th energy center. You're pretty much like off to the right. Anything that you want to obtain within this space can be obtained through that energy potential at that level. And then you can go deeper on stuff. I mean, the sky's the limit, but first and foremost is mastering that emotional state, because that's the stuff that just destroys people, in my opinion. And it's always the baseline for anyone to start their seeking is your emotions don't control you, you control your emotions. And then people are like, is that toxic masculinity? No, it's not. It's just it's just realizing that is a page, that's a facet. You can be here, you can experience, as Sean would call it, the ego state, and you can be in that present moment and not have to continually suffer what they call the shadow work or the shadow expression, which is part of the dualistic experience. But if people don't get this information, they won't understand what they're being tortured by. It's just realize that polarizing effect is going to be always evident here, and that you have a choice to experience it or not experience it, and there'll be value to it or not be value to it. It's like you can't dismiss. I always tell people, if you dismiss someone else's belief system, you dismiss your own. For whatever reason, if that person wants to experience the shadow, let them experience the shadow. That's not for you to tell them, oh, no, you can't experience that, or you don't want to feel bliss and happiness and joy all the time, or, oh, that's dangerous if you do that all the time. There's no guardrails. Let that experiencer construct it the way they want it. But yeah, I'll send you a personal link, and you can check it out for yourself if you want.
Great, thanks.
Just try it out and see where it takes you. But it always regulates people, and it's always a good starting point for anyone to just get that energy flowing, and get back on something. I always tell people, it's like you do two. What is it? I think it's 2 months. Yeah, 2 months subscription, 2.5 months subscription, really. But 2.5 months subscription is equivalent to less than one visit to a therapist, and you're off to the races. I think the key is measuring. I give them an Easter egg that they can measure what they've gained from that experience within the first experience. So they're like, holy crap, I did this once, and I'm able to commandeer the state that I'm in. It may not be 100%, but neurologically, when you start working with this stuff and you start understanding it, you're moving the energy and you're starting to regulate it. And through your attention intention, which happens instantaneously when you activate the energy centers, because it's like a switch on. You put your finger in a plug, and you're activating, basically the cosmos inside you. That's the potential. But the microdosing part is the important part, and I microdose. So within this, someone will go, well, I'm on week 1, and this experience is the same one I experienced yesterday, because you need to regulate this energy center. I'm not going to have you and I know where Sean was going. It's like, well, you don't want to switch on Kundalini like it's a flip of the switch, because that can be problematic. And that's why it's structured so that you microdose the energetic regulation. And so it's not just like turn it on and someone has a psychotic break, because that could be, and that's where I'm not looking for. I'm looking for people to ease into it. And as I put it, the analogy is you're driving around in a Pinto, and I get you to pull over to the side of the road and open up the hood. And then you open the hood up and you go, holy crap, there's a Lamborghini engine. It was always sitting dormant there. And you develop it, but you're not you're not edging in. And I also believe that, people get what they get. It's whatever you're supposed to have right now. Consciousness is giving it to you. But I think that having these type of systems, having all your insight, all your teachings, is helping people experience something that you and I might have had more of a finger in the socket type of experience, which is kind of where I came from. Many, many years ago, I had a finger in the socket. I guess it was necessary, but I just feel more like help a community person out, help the community out by progressing in this developmental skill, rather than just going for Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. I don't know.
Right.
I'm sure you've probably got a similar idea of that. But
No, and I think slow cultivation is the way to go. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Anyway, I'll stop rambling. I just appreciate you. I think you're amazing. And
Thanks.
thank you again, brother.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was great. Thanks so much.
I want to thank you. I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. And I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing. And I'll see you on the next one, guys.